Hi everyone, and welcome to this month's Rancher Meetup for February. We have a great crowd here today, and it looks like we're going to have a ton of content to go through. So thanks for joining us. This is Shannon Williams here from Rancher Labs, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host for these meetups, Darren Shepard. Darren and I are two of the founders here at Rancher, and we've been hosting these monthly meetups now for, more than a year. I think this is about our 15th or 20th meetup. Today's meetup is going to be a lot of fun. We're diving into a topic we covered last August. We've had a lot of kind of smaller topics we've been wanting to cover in a meetup. We've had a lot of big topics recently, so we've crammed them into a series we call Tips and Tricks for Running Containers. And this month we're doing more tips and tricks for running containers. So we're going to cover a lot of great things. Because of that, we brought a whole bunch of friends to talk about different topics that we're going to dive into. So today we're joined by a number of our colleagues here at Rancher. Rajashree is joining us. She's one of our software engineers. She is going to be talking about webhooks. Hi, Rajashree. Then we're also joined by Bill. Bill Maxwell has been on a number of these meetups you've seen in the past. He is our senior DevOps lead, and his discussion today is going to be talking about all the new secret management stuff in Rancher. Bill, are you there?
Hey, how's it going?
There. The other two people we have are Siddharth Mani. Siddhartha is based in California. He is going to be talking about Kubernetes. He's one of our Kubernetes leads here at Rancher. And he'll be talking about Helm and the new Kubernetes Dashboard and how we've really promoted those inside Rancher to make it really easy to get the access to all the front end from Kubernetes. Sid, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Shannon.
And then finally, Raul Sanchez is joining us from Madrid. Raul is one of our field engineers, and he's been working really closely with the team at Traefik on the Traefik load balancer and building out a great implementation of that inside Rancher. So, Raul, do you want to say hello?
Hello, guys.
Awesome. So we're really lucky to have all of these people here. They've spent a bunch of time to kind of prepare some content and demos to dive into some interesting areas. We kind of preface every month our meetup by just trying to kind of set the expectations for you for joining. This is really a meetup. I know we use GoToWebinar to make it happen, but when we talk about this event every month, we're always trying to think about technical topics that will be interesting to our users. We have more than 1,000 people who register and attend these now on a monthly basis. So lots of people interested in the topics, interested in getting into it, and these get the videos at the end of this will get posted to YouTube. They get watched hundreds and hundreds of times afterwards. So if you've got ideas and you'd like to have us cover topics, please don't hesitate to email them. You can email them however you like. You can send them to Darren@rancher.com or Shannon@rancher.com or just info@rancher.com, and we'll get them at somehow or another and try to work them into one of our upcoming meetups where we have plans to talk about storage. We have plans to dive into some more things around CI and metrics and monitoring and all sorts of topics that people like to discuss in more depth. So if you have ideas or things you'd like to see or you'd like to present, we always welcome external people to join and talk about the different concepts as well. Because of that, we really don't have any firm time deadlines. These meetups almost never get done in an hour. So if you have to leave in an hour, don't worry. We're recording everything. It'll all be up. You can see it at a later time. The other thing is we really are, it's meant to be very interactive. We kind of are envisioning you all sitting out there at your desks, and when something's not clear or you don't buy what we're saying, ask a question, suggest an alternative, and we will absolutely read your question, we'll respond to it, we'll share it with the rest of the audience. If we can, we'll, we've even opened up people's mics so they can ask the question over the phone if it's a complex question. So, it's really an interactive session. We'd love to get your involvement. If you raise your hand or post to the questions tab in GoToWebinar, we will do our best to connect with you. Sometimes it takes us a little bit to get to them, so if we're talking or we're answering a question, or maybe you ask a question we're just about to cover, you may not get an immediate reaction, but before we leave, we try to answer every question. So sometimes your question may not be answered for 20 or 30 minutes because we get hundreds and hundreds of questions during these events. The other thing is, it's all going to be live demos. We're demoing everything live. We don't do recordings. We show you real things. We try to prep everything so it goes quickly and smoothly, but sometimes things break. If you are a veteran of these events, you know they break, for all sorts of different reasons, network connectivity, machine reboots. I mean, all sorts of things can cause the demos, of course, to explode on us. So if they do, we'll talk about what we were going to show you, or we'll try to get it back on track. But be patient. If you notice we fat finger something, by all means, send us a note. We'll go back and fix it. We have an amazing community of people who attend these. Every month, I talk about this, and I post the pictures you guys send us of yourselves watching and participating in the meetups. I feel like I've gotten to know so many of you because of your regular participation, and some of you I've been lucky enough to meet in person now over the years. Please say hello on Twitter. Just do a hashtag ranchermeetup and introduce yourself. Tell us what you do. Tell us what you're doing while you watch the meetup. We've had people post pictures of them driving and listening to it. Lots of people eating their lunches or dinners or midnight snacks. Lots of people have posted pictures of their teams and their groups because they watch it as a group of people. And so, by all means, share however you can, but please share a picture, introduce yourself to the community. And during the discussion, if you want to talk, use this hashtag ranchermeetup anywhere in Twitter. Follow that channel, and you can chat about it as we go. It's a really nice open way to discuss where we don't have to try and filter it as the presenters. Okay, so now to the good stuff. We're going to cover 4 main topics. Bill's going to talk about the new integrated secret management that came out with Rancher 1.4. Roger Schree is going to talk and demo some webhooks that we've been implementing to enable autoscaling in Rancher. They're really the first couple came out in 1.4, there's a couple more coming in 1.5, and this is a framework that allows you to really build whatever type of webhooks you want. So we're excited to kind of show that. Roll's going to talk about Traefik, then Sid is going to dive into Kubernetes Dashboard and Helm, and finally Darren's going to talk about the 1.4 release that came out earlier this month, 1.5 that's coming out the beginning of next month, and again, at the end, if you have any questions or want to get started with kind of a deeper discussion, just let us know. We'll try to answer them then. We won't leave until all your questions are answered. For anyone who doesn't know Rancher, I always try to spend 3 slides at the beginning just to kind of set a really quick introduction of who is Rancher Labs. We're a startup. We're about 60 people now. We're based in California and Arizona and all over Europe and Asia. So we're a pretty global team. And our focus as a company is really on making containers work in production. We have 2 main projects. Rancher, which is an open source management platform for running containers that includes like distributions of Kubernetes and Mesos and Swarm, as well as our own cattle orchestrator and a lot of infrastructure services, and just makes it incredibly easy to run containers. And Rancher OS, which is a tiny OS distribution built to be less than 50 megabytes and to run Docker incredibly well. It uses Docker as PID 1 and is incredibly popular with people who want to minimize their OS footprint and really just use the host to run containers. So Rancher, it has just grown exponentially since we started it. We introduced it right about this time last year. We GA'd Rancher for the first time. It had been in beta and alpha for about a year and so before that, but it's only been about a year since we actually released 1.0 and rolled Rancher out as something that you could get support on. It's an open source project, just in case anyone doesn't know. Rancher's everything we build are open source projects. We as a company sell support, so if you want to run it in production and you feel like you need to be able to file tickets and get somebody to fix any bugs, that's what we do as a business. And everything we focus on is how to really adopt containers to accelerate software development in your organization, whether it's a startup or 5 people or it's some of the biggest companies in the world that use Rancher. We love to hear from you. We love to work with you. Our focus is on making it very simple for teams to deploy and access their containerized clusters and environments, to set policies for how those things can be set up, to simplify effectively running containers anywhere. So a lot of what we do with Rancher is we implement infrastructure services so that you can take infrastructure from anywhere, any Amazon cluster or Google environment or Azure or bare metal hosts or VMware or OpenStack or whatever it is that you have computing capacity. You take that capacity, you group it into what we call environments, and you choose the type of orchestration you want to run in that environment. And Rancher lays in all of the management and implementation of storage, networking, security, DNS, load balancing, policies, and implementation, so that your application runs the same wherever you deploy it, whether it's a little lab in your office, or you're deploying it out at enormous scale into the public cloud. Around all that, we implement full distributions of the orchestration suite. So we provide supported distribution of Kubernetes. That's incredibly popular among our users. It's one of the main deployment methods we see these days, is people running very large Kubernetes clusters, very large cattle clusters inside of Rancher in their organization. Often people use more than one of these across a large company. So we've had a lot of people speak in past meetups about running different orchestrators for different teams and different purposes. So we support different orchestration methodologies. But then around that, we allow you to connect up your user management platforms. We allow you to plug in your CI tools, and we provide a lot of really cool application catalog and things like that to make it simple to deploy and build your environment. And all of it's open source. So that's really Rancher in a nutshell. And feel free to ask questions. I'll certainly get to them as we're going through the different presentations. So today's is really a continuation of our August meetup, when we talked about tips and tricks for running containers in production like a pro. That time we introduced a lot of cool things. We talked about some of the stuff in the catalog. We talked about building your own catalog and how to build a catalog of tools. We introduced tools like Cowbell. We talked a lot then about Prometheus and Vault and some really cool tools. You can see that video if you haven't watched it before. We'll probably run a series of these. I imagine this will be version 2. We'll probably run another one in 3 or 4 months when we have a bunch of cool things we want to sort of talk about in shorter segments. But you can go back and see the previous one. All of our meetups are kept on YouTube. If you just go to YouTube and search for Rancher Labs, you'll find our channel really quickly, and you can see all of our meetups. But the one we ran last year was a focus on a couple things. We talked about Cowbell, which in a lot of ways is the precursor to Webhooks. We talked about Prometheus. We talked about Janitor, which is a cleanup utility for removing all of your old containers when you're no longer using them, and images. We talked about Vault, which we're going to talk about again today, and we talk about in more depth what's going on in secret management. So feel free to go back and look at that and any of the other meetups if you're ever sort of trying to find a solution to a problem you're running into in your deployments. But for now, I want to get started with secret management and turn it over to Bill. So Bill's going to walk us through the new integrated secret management capabilities in Rancher. Bill, are you all set? Bill, I cannot hear you.
About that.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so you are now the presenter.
Okay. Just want to say before the demo that Hub was having a issue, so hopefully it resolves by the time we're ready to do the demo.
And what was having an issue?
Docker Hub.
Oh, Docker Hub. Okay. Well, hopefully that won't be this month's challenge.
Yeah. So pulling images right now failed right before this. So, hi. I'm going to talk about integrated secrets management today. In 1.4, we introduced an experimental feature to showcase or show how we plan to move secrets through Rancher in an encrypted fashion. So, while trying to balance it for both of kind of sets of our users. From the community standpoint, just getting up and running quickly, give them something that's reasonably secure and safe, versus also our enterprise solution where they want to work with security teams or have teams managing Vault or want to take that overhead because it's that much more important to them. They can also do that. So, kind of the new components that came with 1.4 that sort of make secrets all sort of work is there's a new secrets API on the management control plane. There's a new volume driver, and during the registration process, hosts now create an RSA key pair, and those get sent up. The public keys get sent up to Cattle and stored in the database for use during transferring secrets down to the host. And optionally, you can choose to use Vault for the encryption backend, and so there's provisions for turning that on as well. All right. So the new secrets creation workflow, you have the user who then creates a secret. In this initial pass, it's currently in the UI, but plans to add it to the compose, and the CLIs are coming. So the user creates the secret. It's then sent from the Rancher server to the secrets API to being encrypted. And the secrets API will then either forward that along to Vault for encryption there, or it will use a locally stored key to encrypt the data and then send back that response to Cattle, which then stores that encrypted data in the database. Okay. So then the super simple part of using the secrets as getting them into a container sort of follows this new workflow. A user creates a container and requests a secret to be added to that container, and we'll go through what that looks like a bit more in the demo. But they request this container, and so Rancher sees that they're asking for a secret and generates a unique ID string, and then tells this new volume driver to create a volume, passing this new ID to them. Then this data the volume driver then requests from Rancher the secrets associated with that unique ID, and then Cattle then gets that request, and then also gets the public key for that host, and then makes a request from the secrets API to wrap all of the secrets with this new public key. And coming in 1.5, we've sort of shifted this a little bit. In 1.4, there was a character limit, I think, of 144 characters because we were just doing straight RSA encryption. But what we're doing in 1.5 now is generating a one-time AES 256 key, and then encrypting that with the RSA public key, and sending that whole data down as a payload. But the secrets API will decrypt using Vault or the local key that's stored there, and then hand that back to Rancher, which will then send that data down to the volume driver. The volume driver will then use the private key on the host to decrypt the AES key, and then write those secrets to a TempFS volume. And then once that's done and the volume's created, Rancher then deploys the container and bind mounts that TempFS volume into the container and runs secrets. So things to note here is that throughout the transition, the secrets are really not they're in plain text on the host, and they're encrypted per host. So just if you got host A's encrypted payload on host B, you couldn't decrypt it because you wouldn't have the private key. The only time that really they're ever in plain text is at creation time, and in this rewrap, they're briefly in memory in plain text getting wrapped into the new AES to be sent down. Yeah. It's still an experimental feature, and so we've got a few things before they get into GA, and the primary one is locking down the local key at rest. So being able to secure the key and also keeping it in memory while it's running. That way it's not being stored on the file system. And also sorry about that. Also that when it's stored, it's locked, that you just can't use the key with a database dump. longer term improvements that we're looking at is signing the public keys with possibly creating our own CA infrastructure to sort of during host registration, sign the keys and then have this only work with signed keys. And the other is possibly bringing back some of the functionality of the Secrets API, Secrets Bridge that we had done last year, where it would be able to create temporary tokens and policies and inject those into the container for those that want to really leverage a lot more of Vault's capabilities directly. So we'll look at possibly bringing some of that capability back, and then you can use all of the really neat features of Vault. So if you want to take a look at the docs, they're on our primary docs page, and then if you want to see the source code, the new components that make this up are the Secrets API and the Secrets Flex Volume. So if you want to see how that's all working under the hood, those are the repositories for that. So now I'd like to do a demo. If this is back online, it does not look like it. Okay. So this is the rancher cattle environment. Secrets currently are scoped to the cattle orchestrator. So here in an environment, secrets are scoped at the environment level. So to add a new secret, you give it a name. Password, and you give it a value. You can make sure that it's exactly what you meant to type. And so then it's now created and then usable in other applications. So I want to talk about actually using a secret now. So yeah, here we have a testing container. I use the Alpine image because it's actually on the host. I know that. And then here is where we can add secrets. And so this is really following Docker's set API. This is it lines up exactly with what they're doing in Swarm. So here you have some flexibility to determine how that is written on the disk. It's currently set to UID and GID 0 with a file mode of 444, but you can set a new user ID or group ID. You can set the file mode on how that file is written. It will always be written to run secrets. Again, this lines up largely with how Docker's handling things. And just to sort of talk a little bit about what they're doing now, they have their official repositories, and they've been slowly migrating towards this new pattern. A lot of containers can be configured via environment variables. So, the MySQL one, for instance, has the MySQL root password, has the MySQL database. What they've done is they've come up with a new sort of paradigm or model where if you append _ file, then the value in that file will become the value of that environment variable. And so here, if you look at, this is the entry point for the MySQL container. You can see now that XYZ DB password file will then become XYZ DB password environment variable when you go to actually start MySQL. And so by sort of working, looking at the UX of Docker, which they do very well, in copying that, we are now able to leverage the community, the standard library templates without modification, and so they'll just be able to work with Rancher Secrets out of the box, which is pretty powerful. So here, I'm just going to stick with the default, but I've selected my secret. You can select from the dropdown, and then this is as name. By default will just be whatever the secret name is, but you can give it a name. You can say my password or whatever, and that will be the name of the file. So if I want this secret, it'll be in run secrets my password. So let's create this container. So it's now up and running, and now if we execute a shell into it, you can see there's a new file with my password, and my password, I have password 123 in that folder. And so now you can either follow the same model as Docker does with the file _ variables, or your application can just know it'll go look for a file. And you can see that this is a tempfs volume, so it's all in memory. And this is where secrets will be written. So that's kind of secrets in a nutshell.
Hey, Bill, this is Shannon. Great demo, and thanks for walking through all that. One of the questions John Maloof asked is, he said, so there are Rancher secrets and Kubernetes secrets. Is there any point using the Rancher secrets if you're using Kubernetes as your orchestration engine, and you're already using Kubernetes secrets? Anything you can add to that?
I think the kind of thing about Kubernetes secrets is, they've created a path for secret data to sort of flow through, but the thing you have to be aware of in Kubernetes currently is that that data is not encrypted. It is not stored encrypted in etcd, and so it's not moving through the system in an encrypted fashion. They've got ACLs around the type of data, and they've done some things to protect it, but that's just something to be mindful of. And so, if you are using Kubernetes, that is sort of their paradigm. A lot of folks that we've seen that run Kubernetes in production, they ultimately end up running Vault and some sort of Sidekick or something like that to integrate with Vault to sort of actually handle the truly secret data.
Excellent. Another comment, I don't know if anyone just noticed too, I just pushed out a chat message. It looks like S3 is what's down, so S3 is having a pretty big outage, which is triggering Docker's outage and probably lots of other outages around the internet. So that's the reason you're going to be missing a lot of things we might want to demo today. So hopefully we'll be able to get through some of the demos and things will work, but we'll try to get some workarounds. But we may be talking more than demoing if we don't have Docker Hub and S3 today. There was another question that came in on secrets, though. Andrej asked, will there be a way to put secrets into environment variables? Do you want to answer that?
We've been talking about it and trying to figure out what the best way might be. We've been talking about it, and something that we're considering but haven't really committed to at this point.
Okay.
That's all I can say about that.
There was another question. Michael Dyer said, he'd love to see a mechanism in the future for dropping the secret from the container once it's been used. So once it's been accessed, somehow the container is expunged, or the secret is expunged. Any thoughts on that? Is that something that's in the roadmap, or you've heard of other people doing?
No, I mean, I think from our standpoint, I think how would Rancher know that the secret's been used by the application is sort of kind of would be the real challenge there. So I mean, as part of your init script, you can source and get the value, and then delete the file from the tempfs, and it should be gone as part of your init script process. And that way, you would know you actually read it before something that has no idea that you read it or not did that.
Interesting.
One thing
another comment from GB, he said maybe stick it in a FIFO, F-I-F-O. I'm not sure if that's relevant, but there was another question from Corey, and he asked about if there were any thoughts or plans about scoping the secrets more narrowly than to an entire environment, whitelisting specific stacks, for example. Any thoughts on that, Bill?
Yeah, in general, we agree. And I think we can do some more of that as we work towards adding RBAC functionality into Rancher, a bit deeper into the environment, which we're talking about. I'm not sure where it's going to fall on our roadmap, but once we have those capabilities and hooks, then it makes perfect sense to start doing that at the secret level as well.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, Bill, thanks for all of that. If there's any other questions about secrets, feel free to fire them in while we're going, and Bill can keep an eye on the questions and try to answer them. There's an interesting question that came in during Bill's talk from Ian Swoboda, and he asked, what would you define as solid prerequisite knowledge for understanding and implementing Linux containers using Rancher? I think this is something I get asked a lot as teams sort of start to scale and more people are using containers. Rancher really maps, especially Cattle, very cleanly with Docker. So, generally, most people who come to Rancher or come to Kubernetes or Swarm or anything, they tend to start by having used Docker a bit. And so, I always think of, someone, kind of is building up the pyramid of skills. It's really, at the base layer, somebody needs to have some infrastructure skills. If you're running this in the cloud or you're running this in bare metal, somewhere you need to have, someone who has a design for that infrastructure layer and understands how to use Amazon or use Google or use VMware, whatever it is that is going to be providing the hosts, the storage, and then, the networking connectivity. I'd also go with, you need to have support for someone who knows Linux. It says if you're using Linux containers, you're going to be dealing with Linux OS, and so Linux knowledge is sort of the next layer above that infrastructure layer. And finally, Docker knowledge. Just a simple understanding of the core principles of Docker. What is a Docker image? What is a container? How do you create them? Those would be the sort of three layers that you probably need to understand a little bit before you dive into managing applications and orchestrating with containers. But you can actually get a lot of value through that learning process just by using Rancher. You can sort of understand how to provision hosts, how to, deploy your OSs, what OS to choose, then how to sort of start spinning up your first couple containers. So I don't think you need a ton of prerequisite knowledge, especially if you go to something like try.rancher.com where the whole backend is hosted for you and you just want to get your hands dirty right off the bat. You should probably be able to get going pretty quickly. But those are the layers I would think of, Ian. Certainly welcome to other people's thoughts and comments on this. Happy to sort of send them out. There was another question about secrets. Luis asked about this. He was asking, when do you expect to have support for Rancher Compose for secrets? Any comment on that, Bill?
Hopefully soon. I don't think it's made it into 1.5, but I would say 1.6 it would probably be a realistic target.
And so that would mean basically a month from now, a month from the beginning of April.
Mm-hmm.
Good question. There was another question. Chris asked, any thoughts about conft and secrets integration? Anything you can talk to there, Bill?
Yeah, I started noodling this one a little bit too. I don't think conft has like a file backend, which would be kind of one way to handle it. Yeah, I haven't. I guess if I was to just go brute force it right now, I would probably create an environment file and then use the environment backend as it starts up conft. But yeah, it's not clean, but it's something that we are, or I am, certainly thinking about and trying to come up with a good way to work with that. I mean, in general, we're going to need, the container space is going to need some sort of way to handle this, as this is the model Docker. Kubernetes can also do files, and yeah, now Rancher is also doing sort of this file-based secrets delivery.
Great. There's a whole bunch more questions that are, kind of in that same, in sort of more off-topic areas, and I'll try to answer in the questions tab or as we go through the question. So I'm gonna switch now though to Rajeshri. So thank you very much, Bill, and thanks for the demo and discussion about secrets. Rajeshri, I know you were having some problems with your demo because of the missing Docker Hub. But do you want to maybe talk a little bit and go through what you can and see where we're at?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Awesome. So Rajeshri, you should be the presenter now. You just need to share your screen, and there it is. We can see your deployment right now. Do you want to maybe bring up your slides?
Yeah, I'll just start with them.
Excellent. We can see it now.
Okay. Yeah, so basically, I'm Rajeshri, and I'll be talking about the Webhooks service feature that was released in 1.4. Webhooks in Rancher, like in 1.4, had only one driver, and that was for scaling of services. But from 1.5 onwards, we have also added webhooks for scaling of hosts and a webhook for upgrading services based on Docker Hub webhooks. So first of all, I'll be talking about the webhook in 1.4 that was for scaling of service. Let's take a look at how we can create webhooks. For that, we'll navigate to the webhooks page that is under API. And over here, so over here, all the webhooks that you have created for the environment will be listed under receiver hooks. So as you can see, add receiver over here will let you register a webhook, and then it will give you a URL, which will be listed under trigger URL. And when that URL is hit, some action inside of Rancher will be triggered. So now what action is triggered depends on the kind of driver that was selected while adding this receiver hook. So let's take a look at that. Now, each receiver hook needs to have a unique name so that it can be identified. I'll be just giving some name for the demo. And this is the driver that I was talking about, which you can select from this kind dropdown. So first of all, let's take a look at scaling of service. Once I select the driver from this dropdown, the rest of the fields are specific to that driver. Since I'm scaling a service, I need to select the service, then specify whether I want to scale it up or down, then the amount by which I want to scale up, say by 2. I also need to provide the minimum and maximum values that the service can be scaled to through this particular webhook. So I'll be creating this webhook now. And as you can see, it is listed under the receiver hooks. Now, this trigger URL is what will actually execute the action of scaling up or down. And for that, a post request needs to be sent to this particular URL. So going back to the slides, now the webhook that we just created can be used for auto scaling of services. But for that, we'll have to use some external service in order to monitor our target services. For that, for the purpose of this demo, I'm using Prometheus, and I have launched Prometheus from the community catalog. So basically in Prometheus, I'll just show you like the configuration, how I've configured Prometheus. Okay, so in Prometheus.yaml, okay, sorry, actually right before the demo, I had done some changes to my setup, and after that, I couldn't get it working because like Docker is down and also S3 is down. So the changes I had done to the Prometheus configuration aren't there, but I can show them over here. So in Prometheus, we have to add a file which will define all the alerts. And in that file, you can use metrics such as say CPU user seconds or multiple other metrics that Prometheus provides. And you can select whichever container you want to monitor by using any label. So I've used one of the like Rancher labels. And once this file is created, you need to add the path to this file in prometheus.yaml in the rule files section. And so Prometheus does the job of monitoring the container or like the service you have specified, and it fires alerts. So this is where you can see the configured alerts. But in order to actually in order to send notifications for the fire alerts, you also need Alert Manager, and I have added that to the Prometheus stack, which is on port 1993. And Alert Manager has like fields for sending different types of notifications, such as like email notification or Slack notification, and it also has a field for webhook config. And this is what the config.yaml would look like. So once you have created your webhook, you can take that and you can add it to the field webhook config for like yeah, you can add it to the field webhook config. So in this file, whenever an alert for webhook receiver up, basically an alert to scale up containers is sent to alert manager, this URL will be triggered, and this was the URL that was returned by webhook service after adding the receiver hook. And once this URL is triggered, the service test target will be scaled up by 2. And similarly, you can scale it down by adding a receiver hook for scaling down the service. I'm really sorry I'm not able to show the demo right now because like the services aren't running since, as I said, Docker is down. And okay, I'll go to the other 2 new webhooks that we have added. So the next driver that we have is scaling the number of hosts. Now in that, okay, so once you have selected this driver, there will be again the same action option, whether you want to scale up or down. And along with that, earlier as like we were selecting a service, but for hosts, we'll be using a field called host selector. So this is basically a label that you will be providing to one of the hosts, and it can be any label you want. Say it is test value. So all the hosts that have this label test value will be considered as a part of one host scaling group. And if I create this webhook, and if I use this webhook in the same way as I did, as I used the webhook for scaling a service, then when a post request is sent to this webhook, it will add 2 more new hosts with the same label test value, so that the 2 newly added hosts are also part of that original host scaling group. So this is, I mean, again, you'll have to use some external monitoring system to actually monitor the resource usage on hosts, and they will trigger these URLs that the webhook service provides. And the third driver that we have added is for upgrading a service. This is basically based on Docker Hub webhooks. So in Docker Hub, you can, for every image of yours, you can add a webhook. And say I have an image and I want to upgrade all the services when the latest tag for that image is pushed. I can create a webhook for that. Now, you can have multiple services that need to be upgraded for when a particular tag is pushed. So you can select all those services by providing them this label. This can be again any label you want. It's just necessary to group all those services together. And yeah, these are the options that you would usually provide while upgrading the service through the Rancher UI. And once you have created the, once you have created the webhook, you just need to add this trigger URL to your Docker Hub webhook settings. And once that is done, anytime you push in a new image, all the services with this value will get upgraded if the new image has tag latest. So yeah, that is what we have for now for webhook service.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rajri, for covering that.
Once again, really sorry I was not able to give the demo.
That's okay. I think the concepts were really clear, and it was nice of you to walk through it, and great work on this feature. I know it's something a lot of people have been asking for a while. So it seems like there were a couple of questions that came in. Let me see if I can just go through these one at a time. Grigori asked, does the number of hosts change automatically? Like, you know, when you set a webhook, can you set the, I'm guessing the question is, can you set the interval, like how many hosts to add, and you know, the actual number? I think you showed this, but just clarifying, you can scale that and set, you know, whether you want 1 or 5 or 7 to be added.
Yeah.
Is that possible?
Yeah, like you can decide how many hosts you want to add, or even while scaling down, you can decide that. I forgot to mention, while scaling down, along with deciding how many hosts you want to remove, you also get the option of choosing whether you want to remove the most recently added hosts or the least recently added ones.
Awesome. There's another question that Anil asked, and he said, is it possible to call multiple webhook actions as part of an alert? So, for example, we might have a use case where we want the services to be scaled up on specific hosts as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to just generically spinning it up. Is that possible?
So, like, just to be clear, the question is that if I've created a webhook for scaling a service, then it should only like run containers on a particular host. I didn't get the
Yeah,
question.
that's the question. That's the question.
Oh, so I think the scheduling policies will, like, I'm not sure of this scenario, but I think the way the scheduling policies are defined will be responsible for that. But a webhook service can't handle that. I mean, it will create containers irrespective of which hosts the user wants to add containers to.
Got it. Okay. So there was another question Malcolm asked, and he said, on scaling host,
Mm-hmm.
just to clarify, that could instantiate then a new host on EC2, for example, assuming EC2 was working. So if you're defining the actual host template that you want to use to create that, so the scale, the size, the amount of memory, all of those
Right.
things are defined when you call that. You're saying deploy a medium, high memory instance with this OS. So there's a configuration file associated with the host scaling, correct?
Right. Right.
And
So,
anything that has a Docker machine driver can be used there. So anything that you
mhm.
can provision from add hosts in Rancher, you could add.
Yeah. So like while for the webhook to work, okay, I'll just use the webhook that I created for this. Go through that question. Yeah, this webhook to work, I need to have some host with this label test equal to value, and that host needs to be a I mean, it cannot be a custom host. Like it needs to be either a DigitalOcean host or an AWS host. What happens is, if I have a host with that label, then Webhook service will just clone that host. So it will use the entire configuration that the previous host was using, and the configuration for the previous host would be given by the user while the user was creating it, and all the rest of the hosts that are scaled up will be effectively clones of the first host that was added.
So just to
Like
clarify, you mentioned AWS and DigitalOcean. If I'm using, say, Azure,
no
what?
any Yeah, okay. So any of these drivers would work, and even you can add new drivers except for the custom one. Basically, the host
Okay,
needs to have some driver, like any of the others would work.
got it. So as long as there's a Docker machine driver, we can use that to provision a new instance.
Right,
Um, and basically the action it's taking is the same action as if I went to the host, cloned it,
right.
and instantiated a new one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So a couple questions that have come in. The the question. So Anil just wanted to clarify on his. He wants to be able to execute two webhooks for one alert. I
Hmm.
would assume that's really just down to the sort of the automation in the alerting software of the script. I mean, it should be able to do that from that alerting software piece, correct? So shouldn't you be able
Yeah.
to say do A and then do B, or do A and B when alert goes off?
Yeah, I think I'm using Alert Manager, but as you said, whatever service or software people are using, it would depend on that. I mean, over here I can route different alerts that I'm getting to different webhooks. I have not tried combining two webhooks in case of a single alert, but I don't know. I'm sure that can be done using some external service.
Okay. So Darren asked, so when the host scaling is triggered, how does it create the new host? Does it use the Docker machine driver originally used?
Yeah,
Uh, that's what
it
it's
uses
doing,
that.
correct?
Right.
And so the credentials that are needed to store that are all in the are kept there somehow.
Yes, I mean all the credentials. I mean, for example, if you are using DigitalOcean, that was your base host, then the DigitalOcean token you used right from the token, everything else is there and like in the DB, and that is used to clone. It's equivalent to cloning the original host, and
Hmm.
so I'm copying using the entire config provided for the creation of first host.
Okay. A couple of more questions that came in. let's see, Christian asks, will upgrade services also work with local registries and/or GitLab installations? Or do you have to use Docker Hub only?
So this webhook is very much specific to the Docker Hub webhook settings. I mean, I can just, yeah, I'll just go to my, so this is my repository, this is some image. So this is where I can add the webhook that I had created. Yeah. And every time, and whenever an image with the tag latest is pushed, for example, when I push like Docker, when I do Docker push registry going to latest, that's when this webhook will be triggered. So as you can see, it is very much specific to the Docker Hub webhooks feature, and it consumes the information that Docker Hub would send. So I mean, I don't think it would work with GitLab or anything else, because it relies on what post request that Docker Hub will send to this webhook.
Okay. So how does the, Stian asked, how does the webhook determine the host name for the cloned host?
So like currently in Rancher, you have, when you're cloning host, if your first host is say dev1, your next host would be dev2, dev3, and so on. And like Webhook service uses the same logic for naming hosts as is used by cloning. So the numerical suffix will be incremented by 1, and if there is no suffix, if you just have one host, say dev, then the next would be dev2, and so on.
Okay. And there's another question from Shani asked, can we get any feedback from the webhooks? For example, when you scale up, it would be very useful to get the new scale value as feedback. Is it possible to get something like that?
Well, I mean, the Webhook service adds log messages. So if you like, if the cattle logs are checked, then you can definitely see that like scaling up, like creating host with this name, or scaling up service by like 1 or 2 containers. But that is only in the cattle logs. Other than that, no. Other than that, there is no other like way of notifying that the service has been scaled by whatever value.
Okay. Lots more questions. Chris asked, are there plans for scaling on AWS Spot instances? I think that's a great question, Chris. As far as I know, the Docker machine driver doesn't really expose Spot instances specifically, but we have a lot of people that use Rancher with Spotinst. I don't know if you're familiar with Spotinst. That does a really great job of scaling Spot instances and managing Spot instance availability. We did a nice webinar or meetup with them a couple months ago. So if you're looking for information on them, I'll put it in the question channel. There's another, just to be clear, it doesn't sound like Paolo was just clarifying there's no way to use it with Docker private registry servers at the moment. Is that something that's in the roadmap that we would be able to add, sort of the ability to track private registry changes, or is there any is there anything that we're working on that front, Rajashree?
I mean, like private registry as in, like just to confirm, not any private image on your like Docker Hub account, right? I mean,
no, private registry, like I'm using a on-premise implementation of Artifact 3 that's hosting Docker images.
I mean, I don't. Actually, to be honest, I'm not sure, but this webhook setting, I think it is only present in the Docker Hub, Docker Hub account you have. So, and like as I've said, it heavily depends on what post request Docker Hub will send to the trigger URL. So, like right now, there is no, I mean, there is no plan of having webhooks for that, but yeah, right now there's no plan.
It's a great question. It definitely makes a lot of sense, Paolo. I know that a lot of users use Rancher on private registry servers, so we'll definitely take a look at it and maybe post a little bit about it afterwards to kind of talk about what that would look like, how feasible it is now, and what some workarounds might be there. Lots more questions coming in. We'll probably have to answer some of these on on the chat so we can keep the session moving along. But Rajashree, thank you so much for walking us through the webhooks. I'm sorry the demo wasn't working, and hopefully we'll have something back next month if we don't have it. But we'll make sure we post a video or something showing people how this works in a demo separately in YouTube.
Sure.
And you can look at that at some point.
Yeah, sure, we can do that. Yeah.
All right, great. Well, thank you again, Rajashree. Raul, are you there?
Thank you so much.
Very well.
Yeah, Shannon, I'm there.
All right, Raul. Raul, I am going to make you the presenter, and you're going to introduce us to Traefik and start talking about what's possible with this really cool new Traefik web proxy.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about Traefik. Traefik, it's a modern HTTP reverse proxy and load balancer. The cool point here is that it's code in Golang. You only need only a binary, and it has several backends supported in that to get dynamic backends. Then this is the architecture of Traefik. You come from internet. You have a private network. Traefik is listening. It has an API and a web admin, and the port where you expose your services. The internal logic is like that. You have three sections: entry points, front ends, and back ends. In these three sections, entry points are static configuration. Entry points are meaning where Traefik is listening in HTTP, in HTTPS, the admin port. This is static, and front ends and back ends are dynamic. And you could use many of the already supported backends: Docker, Swarm, Kubernetes, Marathon, Mesos, Consul, and Rancher is on the way. In the next Traefik release, it would support Rancher built-in. Right now, the integration that we did is through confd, and it's not a real-time configuration. You need a confd to execute in an interval of time to get changes in your backends. So this is an example of a simple static config from Traefik. It's a Traefik toml file. As you can see, you could config the log level, the log files, and the important thing is the entry points. The entry points define where Traefik is listening and is responding the request to your services. In this case, the default is port 8080 for HTTP or port 8443 in HTTPS. And a web, the web section that shows where the admin console would be listening. And the important thing is the file. The file section is the dynamic sections of Traefik. The dynamic configuration is like that. Is front ends and back ends. As you could see in the logical, in the internal logical, the request entry by entry points. That entry points has rules that may be host rule or path rule, and it matches one and goes to a front end. And these front ends has backends defined, and goes from entry points to front end, and the front end to backends. Backends are the rancher services in that case. Then we have developed a catalog entry with Traefik. You could set the admin port, where to listen, HTTPS ports. You could say that enable HTTPS or not. You could enable Let's Encrypt support, HTTPS and sticky bit support in the services. It's important to see that Traefik works in a different way that maybe HE proxy or another kind of load balancer. When you have an HE proxy, you have to configure your HE proxy. But with Traefik, not. You launch Traefik, and Traefik look for services labels, but you put your labels in your service, and your service could be published in the way that you define your labels. Right now, we have in the to-do backlog integrate Traefik with Rancher internal certificates and SNI, and a real-time backend update that could be built in that pull request in Traefik. It would be included in version 1.2.0 RC2. The next release that maybe it would be released this week. This is the page of the catalog to instance Traefik. And this is the service labels that you could put in your service to publish it with Traefik. Then, as you could see, you could configure so much thing. And I'd say right now in the demo, I have a system with 2 hosts with internet access. Ports 80 and 443 are open. And I have a test stack with a web test already deployed. As you could see, is a simple web service that you request it, and it returns the headers of your request. It's just to test and to show the concept. As you can see in the service, there are some labels defined. These labels make labels that Traefik publish that service when it would be deployed. Right now, we don't have Traefik. We go to catalog. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that I think you've done a good job of explaining what Traefik is, but the common question that's coming up, I think 4 or 5 people have asked it, is can you provide a little more insight on the difference between Traefik and HA proxy? Since HA proxy, I think HA proxy seems really quite fine. It's already baked into Rancher. So why add it? Why should we use Traefik? What are the benefits? Why would I want to use it instead of HA proxy? Maybe that would be helpful if you could explain that a little bit more. I think there's a lot of questions on that topic.
Okay, sure. The main point to use Traefik is due to Traefik is a zero downtime reverse proxy. HE proxy is not a zero downtime load balancer. It has very little. You lose the service in a little time slot, but with Traefik, it's a true zero downtime service. This is the main point, and the other point is that Traefik was thought about dynamism. HE proxy can manage dynamism, but not in the best way with massive dynamism, because HE proxy was coded in the past with other kind of architecture in mind. Then it could manage dynamism, but not in the best way. And due to the microservices architecture and microservice platform as Rancher has to manage massive dynamism due to the microservice nature. Then that's why we need a true zero downtime load balancer and reverse proxy, and that's why we need that that this load balancer could talk with some of the most popular backends. As you know, when I say backends, I say Kubernetes backends or something like that, like Docker, Swarm, Kubernetes, Marathon. Traefik could talk directly with these platforms. To do it with HA proxy, you could do it, but with CompD or these kind of things. But it's only to show an alternative to HA proxy, because HA proxy is good, but I think for this kind of architecture, Traefik may be a little bit better.
Awesome, thank you. And Raoul, one other thing is just your screen's a little bit hard to see. Can you full screen whatever you're showing on the on the window?
I'm better right now.
Much better, thank you.
Okay. Okay. As I was talking, I have a stack, a test stack with a simple web service. I'm going to deploy Traefik. You only have to go to the catalog to set the name. Traefik is deployed in a global scheduling. And
hey, Raoul, sorry, can you actually increase the size of the font in the screen? It's still a little bit hard to read, I think, for everyone on the thing.
Okay.
If you just bump up the font size.
Okay.
Much better.
This is better?
Yep,
okay.
Much better. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Traefik is deployed in a global scheduling. But to have a little bit control where you want to deploy it or not, we set a label to control where the service would be deployed with the Traefik service. Right now, you only need to set this label in your host, and Traefik would be deployed in all your hosts with that label. You could set the HTTP port, the HTTP and HTTP port, the admin port, 100. We are going to activate HTTPS, and by the moment we let Let's Encrypt support disable. Okay, we could paste our SSL key and cert here. But if you don't paste anything, it could get a test certificates. Then, as I said before, as is configured with CompD, you need to set a reference interval. By default is 10 seconds. Then we're gonna launch. As we could see in our two hosts, is set the label, and that's it. It's already deployed. Then we can go to the admin interface, and we see that Traefik is auto-configured with our test service, and configures a front end with that rule. That's the meaning that when I get a request in the port 80, like we start Traefik in port 80 or 443, it checks for the host header. If the host header match, this front end match and goes to the backends, and we could see we have three backends that are the same. Oops. Oh, sorry. I changed my environment. This is the same that this backends. We could scale up our test service. We are launching a new one. And as I say, this is not a real time by the moment, but it's on the way. But okay, here we go. We have another backend of the service. If we want to access to the service, okay, this is the certificate that it's the test and makes that is not secure. As you could see, every time I refresh, I get a different real server. We could see that it's balancing the load. Okay, then let's go. What happens if we want to? If we need a sticky bit in our service, then so easy. We could we update our service, we upgrade our service, and set Traefik sticky. We set it to true. Then okay, the service will be deployed another time. Will be upgrade. And once the service could be upgraded, then we will see that with a sticky bit, you enter in one container and you are directed to that container ever. Here I refresh and the same real server. Yeah, you could do that with HE proxy. Is right. You could do the same things, but in a different way, because you are in the policy of publishing is in your service right now, because you control how your service is published with your labels. Then right now we are going to activate Let's Encrypt support. You could redeploy the package, or you could set this environment variable to true and upgrade the Traefik service, and then Let's Encrypt support would be, oops. Okay. It's on the way. It's starting with a new config. You could see the logs right there.
Hey, Raul, while we're waiting for this to boot up, there are a bunch of questions that I'd love to kind of just ping you with while we're waiting. Some of these are probably pretty quick ones. One was from Matthew. He asked if Traefik has support for routing gRPC. Do you know if that's supported?
Yeah, I think so. I think that it's already supported.
Okay. The other question was another question was from Dimitri, and he asked if we have the possibility to support floating IPs in Traefik.
Yeah, you could do that, because the floating IPs you have to control in the outside, in the internet. If you are able to update your DNS entries, then you could use floating IPs.
Awesome. Another question was from Simon, and Simon asked if Traefik also acts as a load balancer as well as a reverse proxy. I think you already showed this, but just to clarify, it also is a load balancer as well as a reverse proxy, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a load balancer and a reverse proxy. And you could add, for example, circuit breaker rules, or you have different load balancing methods and these kind of things. But yeah, essentially it does a reverse proxy and a load balancing.
Okay.
This is.
Then another question was from Paul. And Paul said, "Will the Rancher traffic catalog be loadable in a Rancher Mesos environment so the traffic can use Rancher DNS for IP addresses of Marathon to know what service to reverse proxy?" Do you know if that's possible?
It's possible, but right now it's not implemented. In the package, it's only to talk with cattle because Traefik has a built-in Mesos and Marathon support. Then you don't need any kind of integration in that. You could launch the Traefik Docker and configure it, and you could talk with Mesos Marathon. But right now, in the catalog package, it's only needed to configure with cattle because it's not a built-in support for Rancher right now. But it's on the way.
Okay. There's a question from Fabian. He said, just to clarify, is Traefik free and open source, or is it something you have to purchase or anything on that? I think it's all open source.
It's open source. It's open source. You could contract support, I think. I mean, you could see all these things in his website, but it's the software is open source, but you could contract support if you need, like a Rancher, like us.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't you finish up with your demo, and I'll ask a couple more questions when you're finished.
Okay. I think I have some miss with. Oh, sorry guys. I'm going to redeploy the Traefik because I don't know. Wait. Okay. Let's redeploy the service with Acme support.
While you're doing that, Darren, there was a couple questions that asked about comparing traffic. I know you've spent some time looking at traffic with HA proxy and a couple other things. One of the questions I think John asked how does traffic stack up with Nginx as an alternate ingress controller? Yoan asked, mentioned they're using Kong as a reverse proxy. Are there a lot of differences between the two? Darren, do you want to just comment on that a little bit and sort of your experience and what you've experienced with traffic compared to some of the other, HA proxy, Nginx, and Kong?
Yeah, actually, I don't have any experience with the last one there. But in terms of like HA proxy, Nginx, and traffic, I mean, so the advantages of traffic really come from the fact that it's really simple to get up and running, and it's specifically geared towards like these microservices and the patterns you see in microservices. So it's really a natural fit in these. If you want to go and deploy a load balancer, reverse proxy, and do some of these patterns, it's like it's already built in for you. You just have to configure it. The other choices like HA proxy or Nginx, they're far more mature. They're stable, they're more stable. They're faster, but being that they were kind of like Nginx was originally a web server, and then it's kind of grown on to more and more. They've added more and more functionality. It comes with like kind of the extra baggage of like, well, I didn't actually need a web server. I really just wanted a reverse proxy load balancer. So it's a little harder to figure out exactly what you want to do. HA proxy is kind of is probably the most difficult of all of them to run. So us, like personally, we've stuck with HA proxy as kind of like our supported load balancer, and it comes from basically, we know it's extremely difficult to configure and run, but we're handling that for the users. So at that point, since you're not directly interfacing with the load balancer, you're going through like Rancher or APIs, then it makes sense for us to stick with HA proxy because it's by far the most stable and featureful one of any of them. But if you're going to deploy it yourself and manage it, and you want to do like circuit breaker patterns and stuff like that, then Traefik has a huge advantage. So, you know, like the demo that we've seen here, like I think this is a good use case for Traefik. So you just kind of have to pick and choose what you want.
Cool. There's another kind of question that I think you touched on really briefly there, Darren, and Luis asked this. He just said, you know, what's the performance impact of Traefik versus HA proxy? You know, how does it scale? What does throughput look like? Any experience you've had, or you know, certainly Raul, feel free to jump in. Well, what's your experience, Darren?
Yep. Yeah, we. Sorry, Adrian.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, the Traefik guys are pretty upfront about their performance of it. There's, you can see, I mean, it's not as fast as the others, but it's to the point that you probably don't care. You know, it just depends on your scale and sensitivity to latency. So it's not like it's slow, but definitely when you're doing like micro benchmarks, the other guys do perform a little better. But to be honest, it's quite impressive given the how long the project has been around, that they're even at the level of performance that they are. So I don't know, Raul, if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, more or less the same as that you already said. Thank you.
One other question on these different load balancers. John asked. He asked which of the options that we've talked about support session persistence. I know HA proxy does. Does Traefik support that? Do others support that?
Yeah. Traefik supports that. From version 1.1.1.2, you could configure Traefik in a cluster configuration that you could save and share sessions, configs, and certificates in a distributed key value, like Zookeeper or etcd or this kind of software.
Another couple questions, Raul. Connor just asked, he said, there's a field in the configuration of Traefik to set the back-end protocol to HTTPS. Do we need to do anything to also enable secure WebSockets to the same backends?
No, not really. Okay, it's already what. Okay, no, not really. You could manage that with in the same. We could go to the service, to the test service. We are gonna upgrade, and it's a label. You could control that with a simple. Okay, with a simple label. In that case, is Traefik.protocol. Protocol. It could be HTTPS. Then you could show right now it's in HTTP, the backends, all the backends, and as you could see right now is working the Let's Encrypt integration. You know, it's green right now. Then we couldn't access to the service because the service is not serving in HTTPS, but we will see that the backends change his protocols. Okay, you know, you could see right now it's in HTTPS from Traefik to the services.
Excellent. Okay, great. There was another question Stephen asked. He said, what key value store does the catalog Traefik app depend on? Looks like options are console, etcd, Zookeeper, and BoltDB. What are we using in this catalog item?
In this catalog item is not using any key value. It's talking with rancher metadata to know the labels of the services and to publish in a correct way. He's reading rancher metadata and taking these labels from that. But you could use it if you don't want to integrate with Rancher. You could use it with Consul, Zookeeper, or if you want to run Traefik in a cluster mode, you could use Zookeeper, etcd, and I don't know exactly, but it has so many backends as you could see.
Cool. All right. Anything else that you wanted to cover in the demo, Raul? I know we've covered a lot already.
No, I think, okay, you could see right now it's an internal error due to we put HTTPS. But I think that not. I think that I almost cover all the things that I want to show, that it's the concept of how to do it with Traefik. We are just to say that we are developing a proxy provider to better integrate into Rancher, the Traefik piece. We are working on that. It's a work in progress.
There were two last questions about this. Paul asked, kind of following up on his earlier question about Mesos and Marathon, and this one's more for you, Darren, but can the Rancher load balancer, HA proxy, be used for tracking reverse proxy with Marathon managed services? Any comment on
that? Yeah, so I mean, so it's possible to set up the load balancer and then create a target, a port rule that goes to a selector, which basically we're just looking for containers with labels on it. So if it's deployed with Marathon or Mesos and you can put an actual Docker label on it, we will see the label and then we can add it to the load balancer.
Excellent. And then the last question, Raul, was could an application inside Rancher use a Traefik installation or deployment that is outside of Rancher? So if I have a separate Traefik deployment, does it need to, can it just talk to other containers in Rancher, even if I'm not using a deployment in Rancher? I think I got that right, Pierre. I didn't. I apologize.
use Traefik outside Rancher.
Like I'm running Traefik externally, and I want to use Traefik to, say I'm running Traefik in Amazon, and I'm then running Rancher there, and I want to just manage, the reverse proxy and load balancing externally. That should work fine, correct?
Yeah, it could work because you only have to set your backend. If your backend is accessible from outside, I mean, if you are running Kubernetes, you could expose your Kubernetes API to your external Traefik. Right now with Rancher, not by the moment, because they are working in a built-in integration. When the built-in integration would be done, you could do that. You could have an external Traefik and connect to the Rancher API.
Excellent. Okay. Raul, this was great. Thank you for spending so much time walking us through Traefik. Darren, thanks for chatting a little bit about some of the other load balancers. I want to move it over now to talk about some of the Kubernetes changes we made in 1.4. Sid, are you all set up? And hopefully your demos are working, and maybe Docker Hub is back online. I don't know. We've been going for an hour.
Hi, Shannon. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. I've just made you the presenter.
Oh, thank you. Docker Hub, I don't think it's back yet. Last I checked 5 minutes back, it wasn't back yet. But it shouldn't affect my presentation. So thank you, one and all, for tuning in to this segment. My name is Sid, and I work on Rancher Kubernetes distribution. Today, I'm going to talk about Rancher Kubernetes features. One of them is Dashboard, the other is Helm. For those of you who haven't tried Rancher Kubernetes yet, Rancher provides you two great features when you install Kubernetes using Rancher. Dashboard is one of them. It is a web-based UI. I'm going to show you how to use it really shortly. The second feature is Helm. Helm is a package manager for Kubernetes. It allows you to automate app deployments and upgrades. So let's jump into Dashboard. So Kubernetes Dashboard is a web-based control UI. Once you set up Rancher, I'm going to go to the demo screen. Once you set up Rancher Kubernetes, you can immediately start using Dashboard. It comes pre-built. It comes with the distro. Dashboard is the official Kubernetes web UI. It is being maintained and developed by this company called Apprenda, which is a part of the Kubernetes community. Here is the setup with Rancher Kubernetes. I already have Kubernetes started with Rancher on this setup for the demo. Once it starts up, you'll be shown this screen, which you can see right now. And from this screen, you can get to the screen by going to this Kubernetes tab at the top and then clicking on Dashboard. And then you'll see this dialog box where you can click on Kubernetes UI button to be redirected to the Dashboard UI. So this is the Dashboard UI. The Dashboard UI has a nice left-hand side column which lists different resources. There are 5 sections in this left-hand side column. The first is the admin section. The admin section has resources that typically a sysadmin would manage. For example, nodes and volumes. These resources are generally not namespace, that is, they're global to the cluster. So namespaces are also an admin managed resource. The rest of the resources in Kubernetes are all namespace. So they all are not in this section. They're in the sections below. The next section is workloads. In this workload section, you see the various types of Kubernetes workloads listed. Depending on what you're running, you can choose one of the workload types. Once you have your app running, you'll need you'll have to expose that app as a service to the external world, and those services and traffic that is coming from outside, which is called ingress, can be controlled from this section. And after that, there is the storage section, which only contains the persistent volume claims. This resource can be used for automatic volume provisioning. And the final section is config management. This is just simple. Kubernetes can act as a key value store for storing your configs and secrets and certificates. This is the UI section for that. So dashboard, as the name suggests, is a dashboard for the Kubernetes sysadmin. It provides a great UI for controlling what is running in Kubernetes. So, for example, I can view how much of the resources are being used by my in default namespace right now by just clicking on, it's already on default, and then clicking on workloads. And I said it's a control UI, so I can also like start and delete resources that are running. So I can just go here and, for example, I can delete this Ubuntu deployment. So that will delete. If I go to deployments now, there's nothing here, because we just deleted it. Now, what I'm going to show you now is just like we deleted Ubuntu using the dashboard, we can also create resources and create microservices that are going to be run by Kubernetes. So I'll first show you how to deploy a sample WordPress instance with the dashboard UI. So you have to go to the right top corner, click on create, and you can either specify the application details or directly upload a JSON or a YAML file. I have a YAML file prepared for this demo, so I'm going to upload it. So first, WordPress requires MySQL to be launched, so I'll launch that. Let's see if that showed up on the UI. So in the YAML file, I instructed it to be deployed on the namespace demo, so it'll show up in the demo namespace. So it's waiting to be created. Let's work from the demo namespace. Okay. And then once MySQL will get launched in a few seconds now. And while it is launching, let us create the WordPress app to be launched from this. Using the same steps as before, I have to go choose the WordPress YAML file and then click on upload. So this goes to the cluster and starts MySQL and WordPress for me. So while this is starting, let me tell you a little more about the UI. So this UI not only lets me look at just one namespace at a time, I can choose all namespaces and look at combined resource utilization. And this is the combined resource utilization here. And I can also see individual resource utilization for the pods. So it looks like the MySQL pod is up, and so is the WordPress pod. And then I can go into one of these and I can look at logs. Okay, there's some error launching it. Okay, it looks like the pods are already using some memory though. I'm not going to debug this during the demo, so I will move forward with the demo. You can look at logs for other running containers. This is how you can look at logs. So those were the steps for launching WordPress and MySQL using Kubernetes Dashboard. Now, if you notice, it involved us first of all having the definition files which I already had, so I was able to launch it. But Kubernetes also provides you this slick feature called Helm, which is a package manager for Kubernetes. Helm is Helm is a package manager for Kubernetes. It is like the apt-get or yum that you might have already used with your Linux distros. This package manager, just like apt-get or yum, lets you add private repositories, and it lets you search from a global repository or a private repository for packages that are available. Then it also lets you configure these packages before installing them so that it meets your needs precisely. And finally, it also lets you delete packages that you install through Helm. So just like I showed you how to install WordPress and MySQL through the dashboard UI, I'm also going to show you how to install the same in a different namespace this time using Helm, and you'll see how much simpler it is to just launch it using Helm. So Rancher comes pre-built with Helm too, just like it comes pre-built with Dashboard. So you don't need to set up any environment for it. You can just start using it. In order to start using the Helm tool, you have to go to the Kubernetes tab, click on CLI. This opens up a remote shell for you. And in this remote shell, you can execute kubectl commands or you can execute Helm commands. So let's first check if Helm exists. So Helm exists here, and let's check if the Helm is connected to the Kubernetes cluster. The easiest way to check is to run this command, which talks to the Helm backend and then returns the server and the client version back. So if you get both client and server version back, you know that Helm is connected to a backend. Now, now that we know it's connected, and because the version is shown, let's use it to deploy an app. So what I did was I set up a private Helm repository for this demo, and I'm going to add that repository. Okay. So I'm going to add that repository and name it wlan0. So the text is written on top of one another, but wlan0 repository is added. We can verify it by doing helm repo list. So you can see that it has added a repository. Now we can search the repository for packages available. So it shows that there is the WordPress template it has in it. and the version is 0.4.2, and there's a small description right next to it. All we need to do to install an app using Helm is Helm install and template name. So it installs it, and then it gives me a set of commands for using it. So first, let us check if this MySQL and WordPress have started. kubectl get pods. So MySQL and WordPress are container creating. I suspect that container creating is where it's stuck because of Docker Hub being down. I'm sorry about that. I wish I could show you a completely working demo, but that's how you launch an app.
Yeah, I think
Sorry?
this has been great. That I think you've shown all the core concepts and everything's been quite clear. Great explaining everything and walking through this. One thing, Darren, I think it'd be great to talk a little bit about, sort of some of the thinking we've had about the, kind of moving away from sort of a rancher-specific UI for Kubernetes to leveraging the Kubernetes UI natively and Helm and such. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that and some of the thought process from an architecture perspective and why we think that's kind of beneficial to users?
Right. Yeah. I mean, so specifically for Kubernetes in this last release, we've shifted to Helm and the dashboard, and both of those we already had a feature in Rancher which was similar. We had our catalog, and we also had our own Rancher UI. And so going forward, I mean, basically, we want to be able to leverage as much as possible of the community. We think there's a lot of power in the Kubernetes community. So it's really important that we align with, kind of upstream. And so we look at this and, so specifically for Helm, before, we had the Rancher catalog, and then now there's Helm. And so what we're doing, the work we're doing going forward is we're going to bring back the Rancher catalog experience, but if you're in a Kubernetes environment, it's going to be backed by Helm, and Sid is actually the one working on that. And so for Kubernetes, we think this would be great because you'll still get the experience of what we can do with the catalog, which is great for people kind of managing things at a little bit more of like a macro level of just deploying a package, upgrading a package, seeing what's installed and uninstalling it. You'll get that same experience. But right now, since we're kind of in a transition, we dropped the UI, but it will be coming back. Now for the dashboard, basically when we started integrating Kubernetes into Rancher, there just really wasn't any good open source things available. And the Kubernetes Dashboard project has come up and really done an excellent job of covering all the features that are available in Kubernetes. And so going forward, we really want, like in this release, we've just basically packaged it as is. Going forward, we really want to continue to actually contribute and upstream work to it to continue to enhance it. But the basic idea with Rancher is that Rancher is integrating a lot of different components and things like, let's say you have Prometheus, or we really will hopefully be adding registry really soon. All these different things that we add, or Mesos or Swarm, they all have like specific UIs which are really tailored to that product. And it's always been important for us from a Rancher perspective that we don't get in front of the users using the technologies that we're like helping them run and manage and everything. So if you want to use Kubernetes, we want to give you as much as possible a native Kubernetes experience. Or if you're running, Mesos, we're just going to give you like the Marathon. So it doesn't make any sense for us to continue to develop our own UI, which is going to be a specific Rancher flavor. We really want to just give you what's available out there. And also like in a kind of similar thread to that is you'll see for like the Swarm environments, we'll be using Portainer pretty soon to show the UI for Swarm. And so that's kind of our direction going forward is we're not going to just continue to build all of our custom UI. It's there's a lot of good stuff out there. We want to leverage the community. We don't want to get in the middle of the user and the products that they love. Shannon?
I was muted there. I was just saying this is the approach we took with Mesos as well in the beginning, just because you had Marathon, you had some of these good UIs already in place to simplify the deployment. We'll still provide all the UI around the cluster management, the infrastructure management, the host management, I mean, all these other elements that Rancher does really well, but we don't want to necessarily try to, you know, where we want to, if we want to see improvements to the Kubernetes dashboard, we'll contribute to that project, and we're doing work just like we do with Kubernetes and other things. We're contributing to those projects instead of, you know, creating alternatives to, you know, where you know we have to build a unique implementation on top of it. So thanks for sharing all that. So there was another question Mark was asking, and I think that just to clarify on it, so he was saying, so is Helm the equivalent to Rancher/Catalog, and what's the new project Wagyu in Rancher's replacement for Cattle? Do you want to talk about that, Darren? Because I think, just to be clear, the Rancher catalog isn't going anywhere. That's definitely a big thing that we continue to work on, and it's enormously popular in cattle and a lot of other things. But do you just want to talk about sort of where the catalog is going?
Yeah, so there's kind of two aspects to the Rancher catalog. There's like the UI experience and the management of things that have been deployed, and then there's the back-end service, which actually hosts the metadata, serves up the metadata and everything. And so basically what we've always had for the Rancher catalog is we have like the Rancher catalog service, which has the metadata and everything. If we look at basically what we've done with the Rancher catalog, it's very, very similar to Helm. Helm's just right now, you know, missing some of the front-end pieces, the UI, and then additionally, like, you know, what upgrades are available and things like that. So we're going to continue to keep that Rancher catalog experience, but it's going to be for Kubernetes, just for the Kubernetes environments, it's going to be backed by Helm. So Helm is going to be the metadata, like the repository of metadata. So instead of you know, managing like the Rancher-specific YAML files and putting them in Git, you'll use the Helm approach, which is, you know, basically hosted on the HTTP server. So, you know, that you'll see coming pretty soon. So I mean, so basically, like the experience that you're going to have once we integrate with Helm is it's what you've already seen with the catalog. I mean, that doesn't basically change. You'll see all the apps are available. You can click, answer some questions, deploy the app, and then you'll see in the Rancher UI the list of deployed Helm charts / releases. Those things that are already there. If there's an upgrade available, you'll be able to click on it. So it's the same experience that you had before. It's just we're just be leveraging the Helm backend.
There's another question. I think this is a good one for you, Sid. Chris just asked on, you know, he's using Rancher 1.41 and he's running Kubernetes and using the dashboard, but for some reason he doesn't see the load graphs in his dashboard. Is there some special thing that needs to be turned on to show the sort of CPU memory that's on your screen right now, or you need to enable to make that work?
Yes, so for these graphs to show up, Heapster needs to be run in the kube system namespace. That's the Rancher feature we're adding in 1.50. So from 1.50 onwards, the graphs are going to be a part of our dashboard just with a vanilla Rancher installation, Rancher Kubernetes. But as of right now, you need to install Heapster manually to get this working.
So Sid, in Rancher 1.5, we'll be deploying Heapster automatically also?
Yes, okay. As an add-on.
Okay, all right. Well, Sid, thanks for that, and thanks for diving into that. I know we've been on for almost 2 hours now, so I really appreciate everyone who's still a huge number of people here. So thank you, everyone who's still on. We have a couple things. You know, there's lots of questions that are still out there, but before we go a lot further, I just want to, you know, I want to go through a couple things about the next upcoming releases on Rancher. So I'm going to just take back control and put up my slides. Here we go. And hopefully you can all see my screen. So this is so right now we're working on 1.4 1.4. That's what we've been talking about mostly today. It came out earlier this year. Darren, do you just want to talk a little bit about the 1.4 release, and then we'll talk about the 1.5 release in a second?
Right, yes. So the 1.4, I think 1.4.1 is the latest release right now. That's our stable release. It's go back to that one.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. There you go.
Yeah. So I mean, so some of the things we already went over: Dashboard and Helm, webhooks. We just continue to add more functionality to the webhooks. There's even more coming in 1.5. We'll talk about in a second. So network policies. This is again, we're kind of slowly rolling out this this framework. In 1.4, we actually deployed network policy, but there's no UI for it. I believe in 1.5 we have a little bit of UI, and then hopefully in a coming release we'll have a full support for the complete policy. And then let's see, secrets, we went over that extensively. The multi-host IP scheduling, this is kind of a little bit more of a technical feature of if you have multiple IPs per host, you can tell Rancher about those IPs per host. And basically, like when you say I want to bind port 80, like I want to publish that port, we can more intelligently put it on a specific IP. So you can either tell us the exact IP or we'll schedule it to an available IP. And so what this means is if you have multiple IPs on a host, you can bind multiple things to the same port because we'll use different IPs. And so it's a little bit more of a technical feature, but for people with various constraints on how they can run networking and whatnot, this ends up being quite a useful feature.
Great. And then on 1.5 should be coming out in the next week or so. I say early March. It won't be today, but it could be later this week or the beginning of next week once we finalize the last few bugs. Do you want to talk about the 1.5 release? Some of these are things we talked about today, like the webhooks, but there's a couple big new features around the catalog and metadata and such. Do you want to maybe dive into those, Darren?
So catalog right now, what you're going to see in 1.5 is honestly the so we've done a major upgrade to the catalog service. Before it was a relatively simple stateless service, but now for us, in order to do things like leveraging Helm, do private catalogs, do catalogs per environment, we really needed to kind of beef up that service. And so for 1.5, what you're going to see is we basically we've redone that service internally, which means in future releases you're going to see like catalogs per environment or private catalogs. But I think the one major feature that we've added in this one is templating support, which has been a long requested feature. Basically, you can use the Golang templates that approach to templatize your YAML files. So you can ask a question and then put some logic into the template, and so you can dynamically generate the YAML. And so that opens up a lot of possibilities in what you can do to make much more usable catalog entries.
What's an example of something that you could do that would enable?
Right. So something would be like one of the problems you have is with a catalog is anytime you want to bind to use existing resources. So like what you could do is you can have a checkbox, which would be like or you can say like I want to use like persistent storage and use this volume, and then in the template before, because all you could really do was just replace variables, you couldn't do something like define a new volume or not define a new volume, like add a whole new section. So like that's an example of one thing. Or you can do something like I want a load balancer, I don't want a load balancer, or there's basically a lot more logic around how you want to structure the YAML. I mean, it really opens up a lot of possibilities. I think, yeah.
Okay, so do you want to talk about the maybe the sort of the additional network policies that are coming as well?
Yeah. Well, so the additional network policies is basically, so we had a lot of this support already in 1.5. I think we've added a couple more, but key thing is, it was kind of hard to leverage before because you had to go through the API and tweak some little things. But now, at least it's in the UI that basically you can define if you want the default, like if you want to restrict the networking traffic to the stack or service level or to linked services. So basically what you can say is networking is isolated at the stack level. So if I deploy two stacks, they can't talk to each other. Or you can say it's at the service level, which means two services within a stack or within the environment. They won't be able to talk to each other, but they can talk to themselves, like if it's horizontally scaling. And then the last one is for linked. Like you can say whether or not you want linked things to talk. So everything's isolated except for when you link like service A to service B. So that's what we've added right now into the UI. What will be coming next for service policy or network policies is just the more flexible, like where you can just arbitrarily say like allow traffic from this service to this service or from this selector label to this selector label. So they basically choosing arbitrary source and destinations for traffic. That will be coming in a future release.
Awesome.
Right. So
in terms of Docker support in 1.5, are we upgrading to any new, or is still 1.13? What's the supported version of Docker in 1.5?
Right. So the support, in 1.5 it is going to be Docker 1.13 is the supported version.
Okay.
And then, just in case people don't know, might as well give a heads up. Docker is switching to a new versioning scheme, and they're doing monthly releases. So 1.13, the next release after that is going to be 17.03, and they're going to be putting out monthly releases, or 17.04. So they're going to be putting out monthly releases, and then supposedly the quarterly releases will be supported for 3 months. So, 3 or 4 months. But the kind of the reason why I'm giving you a heads up of this is now that the versioning and release cycle is all changing, we haven't quite exactly figured out how that means we're going to support versions going forward. We also release on a monthly cadence too, so we'll see if we can maybe just keep up with the monthly cadence. Or not, we might have to stick to the quarterly releases. It just all depends.
Do you want to talk about the metadata refactoring? There was a couple questions about the versioning. Actually, before you go there, do you know if Kubernetes is going to be supporting Docker 1.13 in the same time frame, or do you still can use 1.13 with Kubernetes as well?
Yeah, I mean, so it works. It works. There's no fundamental difference. It's kind of like all these things have basically worked. The only thing, like if you ask, let's say, like Google, like their internal team, they've only just certified Docker 1.11. They're quite behind. So it's like if you're really going for like the absolute best version to match Kubernetes, you're looking at Docker 1.10, and then maybe 1.11. But from our experience, like 1.12 and 1.13, they do. People are being able to deploy those successfully. I think in terms of just in general, the most stable release of Docker is actually Docker 1.10.
Okay. Roland asked if Rancher 1.5 is going to support Docker Compose v3 as well, which is the default for Docker 1.13. Any questions there?
No, we currently are not supporting v3. We're looking at it. It's a little bit like there's nothing really fundamentally different there. Again, we're having a little bit of a versioning problem with Docker because it seems to be every time they add to the schema, they're changing the version. So technically the latest version is 3.1. So we are looking at that. We will probably pick it up. We'll see as things go forward because as Compose becomes more and more Swarm specific, it might not apply to us. So we're kind of seeing where they're heading with Compose. That's kind of a difficult. There's been very little community discussion around what's happening with Compose. So it's a little bit of a black box there.
Okay. There was actually a question, and it's an interesting one. I'd love to get people's feedback on it in the meetup. But one of the things with all, I think Stefan asked this, he said it's actually getting hard. It's kind of hard to keep up with the monthly release schedule of Rancher. Will Rancher continue to support Rancher 1.4 once Rancher stable points to Rancher 1.5.1 or something? And I definitely would love to hear people's feedback. I mean, we've definitely moved to a more rapid release cycle this year. We've been releasing every month, and getting features out more regularly to you. But Darren, do you want to talk about, because you asked about support there, Stefan, and obviously Rancher's open source, so a lot of people are just using the version that they want to use and using the open source implementation of it. From a Rancher Labs support perspective, we do support the older versions for quite some time. But Darren, what do you recommend people do on versioning and releases, and choosing which release to run? When we talk about sort of Rancher stable, et cetera, and how people should kind of consume these new releases that are coming out between Rancher and Docker and Kubernetes. You do have a lot of moving pieces.
Right, yeah. And so, kind of the background here is the release cycle between Rancher 1.1 and 1.2 was really, really long, and that actually caused quite a bit of headaches for users. One, it took us a while to get a release out. When we did get a release out, we put so much in there that unfortunately wasn't as stable as we wanted to. So the idea was to go to more monthly releases so we could stabilize faster and get things out to users more quickly. So the problem, again, that has been identified here is then people are upgrading all the time. So right now, from an open source perspective, the only thing that we're supporting is the last stable release and then the current latest. So the way it works is whenever we do a release, it gets tagged as latest. So if we do 1.5 tomorrow, it's going to be tagged as latest. We then, after that's had a certain amount of kind of bake-in period, that we're confident there's not new bugs, and because we have quite a few users who basically deploy the second we release, and so once we're happy with that we're not seeing major regressions or anything, then we end up tagging that as stable. So right now, 1.4.1 is what's labeled as stable, and when 1.5.0 comes out, that will be latest. And so what we recommend users to do is to watch the stable release if you're more concerned about you want the much better stability and whatnot. It's only for those who kind of want to track like the latest, get the absolute latest features, or maybe you're trying it for your dev environments, whatever, to actually track the latest label. We'll see how we are looking for feedback from users. So there's kind of two sides here. One is we're trying to make it easier and easier to upgrade Rancher. So one of the things that happened in Rancher 1.2 is we introduced all these microservices. So when you upgrade Rancher, there's also microservices that have to be upgraded, which then requires you to kind of go and schedule all the upgrades. And so in Rancher 1.5, we're actually releasing an upgrade manager component. You probably won't see a UI for it until 1.6, but in 1.5, the functionality will be there that basically it will schedule and run the upgrades of the infrastructure services in a sane way, like slowly rolling them out across environments and everything. And then you have control over when you want to do it and if you want to stop it or if you don't want to do it at all. So we're trying to make that even easier to upgrade. And then the Rancher server itself, we also actually want to get towards something where it's easier to upgrade too. So we have this kind of balance between what's really the best approach for our user, making it seamless to upgrade so it's kind of almost always evergreen, or if we should start doing longer, maybe for open source we have like a 3-month or 6-month release that will support for a while. I honestly don't know what the right answer is. We're looking for feedback. Again, if there's always Rancher. You can always get paid support, and we'll support quite a few of the releases. But for open source, it's just a little bit more burdensome to continue to have to support many releases.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Terry. Did you want to just hit on the API interceptor and metadata refactor before we move on?
Yeah. So the API interceptor is basically this is kind of like a requirement that comes a lot from like enterprise and whatnot. It's just the ability to, they want to be able to hook into our API to provide arbitrary like arbitrary behavior where they can accept or reject or even modify requests, like to sanitize certain things. So this basically gives an enterprise an ability to define their own arbitrary policies about what a user can and cannot do. So this is a very simple model that basically, when a request comes into Rancher, we send a request to some external service, and we pass along, who the user is, what environment they're operating on, and what's the request that they're sending, and it has the ability to basically accept, reject, or modify that request. So last thing here is metadata refactoring. That's something Elena, one of our engineers, has done a great job on, and I've been involved in testing some of that. And basically, when you look at the scale of Rancher right now, is actually our biggest choke point is the propagation of metadata. And so we've kind of started a multi-phase plan of making that very, very scalable. And so in 1.5, we've gone to a different model. If you look on the issues right now, you'll find references to, like, when you get to a certain scale, Rancher using a lot of CPU. Basically, it's doing a lot of YAML processing. Basically, the formats of how we were using of transferring that data around, we ended up hitting a CPU bottleneck. And so we've drastically optimized that such that we're no longer bound so much by CPU because we're using a more efficient data structure to transfer that around. And then additionally, the number of hosts you have in the environment does not cause a significant overhead. It ends up being now the kind of the scaling factor is more just the data set, the number of services and containers that you have. So we're just continually increasing the scale of Rancher, and hopefully in coming releases we'll do the next phase of metadata improvements that will get us to a significantly high scale.
Awesome. All right, Darren, thanks for walking through all of that. I know there's a lot more questions that I haven't got to, some from like an hour ago. So we're going to go through just a couple things, and then we'll stay and answer all the remaining questions until you guys have all had them answered. Just for those who aren't already aware, if you haven't already, you can download Rancher directly from GitHub. You can get started. You can boot it from all sorts of good instructions on there on how to get started. Same with Rancher OS. We also love to see people get involved, fork Rancher to contribute to it. We talked today a lot about things like the webhooks. The webhooks are a framework. We'd love to see people integrate more more things into there. We've done a Docker hub, webhook for creating, upgrading services, but love to see someone do one for Artifactory. Love to see someone contribute something for sort of private, self-hosted registries. So if you're interested in any of these areas, we'd love to kind of see more participation and see people kind of get involved in the community and help make Rancher better. We already have just an enormously great group of people out there on Slack and in in the community of users and helping other users with issues and in the forums and things, filing issues. It's incredible. But there's a lot of room for contribution. We'd love to see more of it. I know by and large, Rancher is an end user community more than it is a contributed developer community, and we're totally fine with that. But we do want to be constantly inviting people to participate, to contribute fixes, to contribute new webhooks, and so we'll be talking, just like the catalog has been such a great community area where so many great things have been contributed. We'd love to see webhooks develop the same way, where people can just contribute all sorts of great and thoughtful webhooks to the system. So we'll try to post some blogs about that over the next couple of months, showing how to do things like that, how to contribute, and how to participate more in the community. Darren, anything you want to add on that side?
Sorry, I was on mute. Nope, not specifically.
Okay, and then if you haven't already, hit try.rancher.com. You can get your own basically free environment. We're running the management server for you. It's a multi-tenant implementation of Rancher that we just host. It's free. You can use it as long as you want. We don't recommend it for production, but otherwise, feel free to use it for all your any testing and lab needs. If you want to try out the latest version, it's always updated within a day or two. and it's a great thing to have on the back end.
And I just want to throw out there that the more people we can get using Try, the better we can make the product. I mean, one of the great things is there's been quite a few bug fixes and stabilization and things like that have come from Try, because basically we get to run Rancher at a pretty large scale because of that, and we get to deal with people doing very odd things, things we didn't think of. So it's we really, if you want to make it better, try it out. We do pay attention to it, try to keep it up all the time, and so it's a decent thing to run, like say maybe your dev off of.
Also, if you ever need to get someone on your team or yourself a little bit more just hands-on training, every month we run the Rancher training sessions. You can just go to rancher.com/training. They're free. They're in-depth, hour to an hour and a half overviews of just basics and getting started with Rancher, creating environments, creating services and stacks. So please don't hesitate to use that. With that, I want to take a minute just to thank all of the presenters today: Bill, Raul, Siddharth, Rajeshri, Darren, and all of you who attended. It's a great community, and we love doing these meetups every month. We love all the amazing questions. This is definitely one of the highlights of my month, is getting to just talk with so many of you and see so many people come back, and we really appreciate all of your time. With that, I'm gonna say goodbye, and then we'll stick around to answer the remaining questions. But thanks a lot for everyone who attended, and it was great to see such a huge crowd come out today. Thanks, everyone.